Financial sanctions are easier than ever for Russians to evade. Thanks, Bitcoin. Yes, the mainstream media is back again, reminding us that Bitcoin can be used to evade financial sanctions, but it can also be used to donate to Greenpeace or any kind of leftward leaning charity you want. It can also donate to rightward leaning charities like the truckers or anyone else on the right or the left. It's almost like universal money that anyone can use. Josh Ugala, what do you think of CNN's points that the Russian oligarchs, the Russian power people, now have a stash of crypto? So even if their bank accounts are frozen, the sanctions will be ineffective because of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bitcoin, yeah, sure. Okay, it can get around sanctions, like, but look, Russia's, butted up against China. If they want anything, like the EU's just dropped a whole bunch of sanctions, like they're not going to allow airplane repairs and motor repairs, and they're going to cut bank accounts 70% of somehow banking access. But at the end of the day, you have Russia, between Mongolia and Kazakhstan, basically, there's a little path there. It's got direct access to you've got the southeast coast of China, sorry, of Russia also has access. Yeah, it's a long way from Moscow, but China is the factory of the world. If they want stuff, they'll get it from there. That's China's an ally of theirs, and so it's not a problem. Also, if you go through Kazakhstan, you go through, it's really these silly sort of things. All it does is they'll just retaliate. And for instance, we've I told this story before the show. I'll just quickly wrap it. We were meant to go for the Standard. We paid quite a sum of money to go to a conference, to bring the whole team there, have a big booth and a couch at the booth and the television, and really, to explain what we're doing with the Standard.io. And yeah, a day before, and the visas were really hard to get from different. We got team members from all around the world, and to get the visas sorted was really tricky. And of course, then they had a snap COVID lockdown. And basically we just couldn't go because they shifted the dates and the visas didn't match. And so we're like, oh, can we, basically move everything over to the next time you do a conference? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so the conference is starting in April, and we're like getting all ready again. We're getting everything sorted. We've got all the merch printed, everything done. Next minute, war. So we can't go again. But this is what I'm talking about. The sanctions of like visas, there'll be countermeasures from out of Moscow, where they then stop European travelers with visas as well. So it's basically, that side of thing is annoying, but people tend to do video conferencing if they're doing business, so that doesn't really matter. If they want anything, they'll get it from China, so that doesn't really matter. Yeah, the oligarchs, maybe they freeze the accounts or whatever, but the oligarchs are oligarchs. They're not dumb. They know shit's going to go down. They've got stuff stashed around, different accounts, and different hardware and gold and property, forestry, farms. They're not just they're not like Scrooge McDuck with all their gold in one big, thing that they go and dive in, and that could be taken away. It's not how it works.
Yeah, I'd agree. Some of the strongest sanctions they've talked about so far but haven't done would be kicking Russia out of SWIFT, which is kind of like a check cashing program. And if they were out of there, it'd be very difficult for them to do business. This is where Bitcoin comes in. So it is a bit of a stretch even there. I think that the business stops are still very important to Russia. Things like the Nord Stream pipeline shutting down, actual construction projects halting, things like that. That still affects them. But Josh had a point early on there that I agree with. It's all about China. China is Russia's best friend. China met with Russia before the Olympics, probably got a back deal, handshake. It's cool, do whatever you want. It's just as soon as the Olympics are over, If we could get China to change their mind and say, hey, there's this radical Russia that's attacking everyone, the entire world is united against it. And if China broke off from Russia, joined the US and the allies, that could be a major thing that would move Russia. I think the Bitcoin story is kind of a distraction, but I do like the way that we're always the next threat, whatever it is. That Bitcoin's always breaking the next thing. Dan, Eve, your thoughts on Bitcoin and sanctions?
Well, just go back very, very quickly to the China relationship with China. I think the one thing that they have in common right now is this reach back for territory. Right, there's China's still going after Hong Kong and there's Taiwan. So it would almost be hypocritical of not that anyone cares about being a hypocrite in politics, but to be against Russia because they're doing the same thing, right? They're trying to reach out to land. But you're right. You can blame Bitcoin about being able to evade sanctions, but they'll find another route. They'll find a way to use other countries that they can pal up with, ones that we might be surprised that for a lot of extra money and a lot of extra underhand stuff going down, they could end up utilizing another country that's even an ally, right? Let alone sort of China, which is the most obvious route. But I think it was interesting that they said they're taking action against, in that article, taking action against corrupt billionaires. And the interesting point there is that if they knew these billionaires were corrupt and they were freezing their funds, why didn't they do it before? Because they were making money, and now they're like, well, we kind of had better act on it. So I think the off ramps and on ramps are the things that are going to be guarded quite heavily, and there's probably going to be a bit of extra meticulous checking that money, fiat money, is not being funneled out of Russia and checking the on and off ramps in those respects. But it does highlight actually something that's quite like one of the quotes in there that said it's harder, but though not impossible, to launder those funds because of the blockchain. So again, we're always hearing about the fact that Bitcoin can be, is not completely anonymous, and they misunderstand what a blockchain is, that it's a public ledger. But some people do get it. Some people do get the fact that it's a public ledger, and that actually it's quite traceable. Hence, the Razzle Khan getting caught using using the off ramps, right? Using a card at Walgreens or whatever it is. But ultimately, it is a tool, and tools will be used by criminals or by anyone, right? The whole point of building a tool is that you can use it for good and you can use it for evil. You just got to hope that it's not being used for evil, and there's enough people, more people using it for good than evil.
Exit question. They looked into the bag and sanctions were the only non-violent tool available. Will sanctions be successful? And when they fail, is it Bitcoin's fault? Yes or no, Josh Shigala?
No.
No on both. It's not Bitcoin's fault, and no, they won't be successful.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, do you agree? Still muted.
The sanctions I don't think they'll be successful, but it will always be Bitcoin's fault because it's easy to point the finger and blame it on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree with Dan and Josh. They don't have all their money in money bins. The oligarchs have been preparing for this. Putin's been preparing for this. Sadly, the sanctions really hurt the normal people more than anything. As we said earlier, normal people are protesting in Russia at their own personal risk, taking their lives and their futures into their own hands to protest this war. But still, there's not much we can do for them, not much we can do against Russia. It's a tough situation. Nobody likes it.